Well, hello and welcome back to the Girlfriend Doctor Show. Today we're digging more into bones. I'm going to be sharing with you a very special community call that was part of our Girlfriend Doctor Club calls. We had a guest on named Margie Bissinger. I've known her for a long time in our space. I've been on her show, she's been on mine, and she really is a bone health expert, but more importantly, she brings with it a joyful perspective, and she really is a happiness expert. So this call was really powerful. And during this time, my Girlfriend Doctor Club community and I had the joy of sitting down with her. And her background is as a physical therapist and an integrative health coach. She's the author of Joyful Health Habits. She's helped thousands of women strengthen their bones, improve posture, and bring more joy into their lives. She's focused on women with even severe osteoporosis and brings in practical strategies and tools and tips that we can really do. So we dive into the powerful connection between movement, mindset, and bone health. Plus, you'll hear real questions from the women in our community who are walking the journey with us. So grab your mighty maca, settle in, and let's jump into this inspiring conversation with Margie.
I'll run through these questions too real quick. But I want to hear from you guys. Who's in for magic, fall magic starting in September, beginning of October? Well, we got a bunch of you guys on. Okay, there's a couple things that we're gonna do this round, and I think that we're gonna do. So I wanted to kind of get your feedback. One is we'll offer the Dutch test again as a extra post. Once we get started with magic, we'll bring that up and offer that. I'll do a short video for that. The second thing is we really had a gut company that does GI testing, stool testing, that looks at our microbiome and wants to do a pre and post, or like, right when we get started, before we start magic following keto-green protocol, and like 6 weeks in, to see if we see what shifts we see in the gut microbiome. And then follow up. I'm wondering how many people would actually be interested in that. Okay. Okay, so a good number of you. Okay. That would be really good. That would be really good. So I'm going to get more details on that and follow up with you. And I've been talking with one of the world leaders in gut health. His name is Dr. Chidozi, about this and doing a study because, number one, really haven't studied the menopausal microbiome very much. That's key. And then, of course, the dietary effects of it. And then to see what are common pathologies and what are things that, what are shifts that are made with diet alone. And then, of course, what else needs to be of focus. So it would give us a lot of information. And I want to, I'll let you guys know about that. And once I get some more of the details, I think Amir and Jami are helping me with that. I've just volunteered them, but it's something that could really help. And I'd like to additionally get about 30 people enrolled, hopefully more, like 100, but at least 30 people enrolled. And with that too, with magic coming up, I'd love for you guys to, touch base with us, touch base with Jami and me. Any ideas in helping to promote magic, to encourage others to join us in magic menopause. We're going to be talking more about that and all those good things, right? Like all those good things. It's fun. It is fun. Depends on cost. So that's a really good question. So the cost for what I'm working on with Chidozi, and this is the thing, like typically we charge in clinic, it's $500 a test plus consult and interpretation. What we would do is, what he said he would do is 500 for both tests, and that includes follow-up and consultation. He would do, additional group calls, to go over those results. So I'm still working on those details. So at that price point with $500 for 2 tests and review of those results and suggested further plan of action. Does that sound like something you'd be interested in if we can do it at that price? So, okay. Okay. So, and I will tell you what I will tell you is that yeah, that's a good question about HSA, Nicole. What I will tell you that in clinic, we do charge approximately 500, of course, plus clinic appointment, plus consult, plus review and follow up. So like there's all of that there, but it's actually we'll do a call about the test, the specifics on the test and the technology, how it differs from GI map. It is not a GI map. It is a different test. And it does look at not just pathologic, it looks at the healthy gut, but also giving us idea how healthy is our gut and what diversity is there, what needs to shift. So yeah, this will go out to, because I want it to be following, the commitment is to follow the keto-green plan for those those strictly for those 6 weeks. So that because it's a pre and post experience, pre and post experience. So anyway, no, it's not the Biome FX either. We will, let me see if I have it here. I've been, believe me, Tiny Health, Biome FX, ViTrack, GI Map, I've done them all. So this is, so anyway, we'll bring it up. I'm gonna still confirm whether we're gonna do it or not and bring up more. Caroline asks, are you still planning on offering a training for naturopath or therapist? I am offering the Magic Menopause certification training this fall. We'll be kicking that off in September. So that's coming up. Yeah, and it's not the Biome test. Done that one too. Gosh, done them all. All right. The ViTrack is the company with their newest rendition of their test. That's very, very comprehensive. But again, I'm still figuring out if we're going to offer this or not and how we would do it. So gauging your interest really does make a difference. Okay. Karen said, I'm still trying to figure out whether I need DNA testing or doing this biome testing, as they both a lot on my budget. I think it's really important to think, okay, what's going to give us the biggest change and the biggest information to make that change? How many of you guys have done the DNA test and been on the calls with Cash? Mary, how was that for you? I did see you on there, by the way. I was able to come on in between clinic. That was my clinic day. And Amy, I know
Yeah.
you've been on.
Oh my word. I've been meaning to tell you that it's just fantastic. I cannot believe how information dense it was and explained so many things to me. Yeah.
So from all the tests you've done, and you've done a lot over the years,
Yes.
what do you think, how do you think you value the DNA test?
Oh, well, I don't, we're still looking at it since it
Yeah.
just happened last week, the conference call. But yeah, I think, well, okay, being in your group was, monumental for my health. And so, and I consider that this DNA is about right up there with that for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I have done, like how many times can you look at your genetics? I have done a few different genetic tests from way back in early 2000, did the Pathway Fit genetic test, then did 23andMe, did the 3x4 genetics, then did the DNA test. Why would I do so many? My genetics haven't changed, but technology's changed. The interpretation, the looking at epigenetics and that knowledge has been really helpful. So for me, it's helpful for me. And then I look at, okay, what do I need to help my kids too? Like what information is key? If there are red flags in my genetic profile, and certainly I light up in all areas, cardiovascular disease and metabolic, but like that helps me really lean in. And and so that's an important piece. When we look at genetics, and Cash says this too, your genetics like are a guide, and it's again 25% genetic, 75% environment. Your genetics may say you can't eat anything, and yet you're really good and able to eat so many different things and ways. So you look at that with the lens of, okay, maybe I need to dig deeper. Like, for example, I think it's so helpful, certainly if you have a methylation defect or glutathione defect, to look at those markers. Like for methylation defect, well, how is my homocysteine? What's going on there? How are my detox and glutathione issues? How are my detox pathways? Am I, with my environment and with my current state of health, am I detoxing well? Or do I need to give my genetics additional extra support? And so they can guide us. I don't like to say, okay, well, you know, um, it defines us, right? It doesn't necessarily define us, but it can really help guide us. Help guide us, especially when we're stuck, especially when we have certain illnesses in our family tree. Yeah. And then
Well, something that I found helpful is just insight into why I have conflicts with people. That was amazing to me because it certainly helped me understand my relationship with Bill a lot better. I have a
wait,
good
talk about that a little more because I missed
I
that
have a
section.
good relationship with my husband, but he drives me crazy sometimes. And he's just retired from teaching this year. So he's going to be in my office, my home, right? And it's going to be harder, but just knowing that we're so different genetically and that's not bad. I found that little piece. I mean, all of the stuff about my bodily functions and how everything's working systematically, aside, that was almost worth the price of admission.
Oh, good. Well, I think that like that gives some clarity. For me, the big thing was like in my like genetic profile for him to say to me, look, you're the person who looks for the problems. Like you find that one problem out of 100 things and you focus on that. That's based on your genetics. It's how I've become a very good problem solver. But, in relationships, that's not really a good quality to have. So,
No.
so it helps you like, oh, okay, well, yeah, or, being a procrastinator. Okay, it's in my genes. I'm going to find the problem and I'll tell you about it last minute. So,
Yeah, I
so I
set my
also have to
clock for
work on
one
that, right?
hour of cleaning my room today because it needed to be done. And I've looked at this mess for too long. Yeah, it was so insightful.
I, I,
I just loved it,
I
and I
love it too.
continue to want to do more. Given
Yeah.
the info I have now.
Well, and then the question is, okay, well, when should I do a gut test? If you have any GI problems, if you're not having 1 to 2 regular dark brown banana stools every day, we've got to look at the gut health, right? We have to look at gut health because that's like urgent. Like that's like a red flag. What's going on? There's urgent. I'm unable to detox or I'm having some irritable. And our gut is a first line of defense. So I feel like it's all important, but when you stage it, how do you stage it? And that's part of decision making process. Like, okay, what's right for me now? Like I think about with my patients. Oh my goodness, and some of my patients who are on right now. I love you guys, but I'm like, oh, I want to do all this tests on you, but we got to do it over time because there's just stages. We work to clean things up one step after another, support growth and rebuilding one step after another. Then where do we need to fine tune, dig deeper? And even when we have the genetics, it's something that we can come back to again and again and again. So we can come back to and say, okay, I'm getting really, I'm seeing this number creep up, or we're still having this issue, or whatever it may be. And it's like, okay, well, what could be underlying this issue? And a lot of that, part of that can be genetic. So we look at it in different ways and stages, which makes, I say medicine is the art of medicine. Ultimately, we are the CEO, the chief medical officer, let's say CMO, chief medical officer of our own bodies. And so we make these decisions for ourselves over time. And the most important thing is that, you guys are showing up, you're showing up for yourself, and that's a big piece of it. So I think that's where it's important when you look at genetics, like how do I empower my genetics? And like I look at my genetics as, like you can look at them as, oh, they're heart attack and obesity genes, or you can look at, gosh, you're designed to survive in the most adverse conditions. Like, how can I further support my health, strength, and physiology in this way? Like, I'm grateful for the genetics I have. And,
To me, the test,
sometimes.
to me, I got validation that a lot of what I'm doing is helping, because the DNA test would say, and I'll use estrogen. It could say that estradiol could be a problem with me, but yet my Dutch test shows differently. So I'm doing something right. So that part is good.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely good. And I think too, like Karen, like what you found, you're like, okay, this has, I've been navigating this path already, being like following the railroad tracks of my genetics and addressing the things that have been problems already.
Yes. To me, the interesting part the most was personality and neural and like anxiety and that part, the brain health stuff. That to me was fascinating. And I'm like, oh, no wonder I'm such a worrier. And it showed that it's in my genetics. And no wonder that was fascinating to me.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and listen to that. And Sylvia put a good question in here. She said, how do we know these companies are not overstepping the science and prematurely tying genetics to properties of the soul? I don't think we're tying them to properties of the soul. These are behaviors, common behaviors, and consistency based on the neurotransmitter pathways. Like, for example, for a long time, and I worked with Navy divers way back in the 90s, I have to admit. I did research with Navy divers, and what we know is that, SEALs have like SEAL training is very rigorous. They get dunk tanked. Yeah, you guys heard of this dunk tank? Where they dunk them to the point of almost drowning and they come back up. And the guys that say, yes, I want to do this again, they have a specific genetic, a gene related to that genetic. I mean, it's really terrible, but there's a gene, they're just going to come up again and again and again and be like, okay, and there's a genetic related to that. And so does that help us navigate the choices we make in our life, or understand the choices that we have and make better choices than jumping in a dunk tank? But, I mean, it's kind of interesting to know those genetic, the aspects of the genetics that are associated, but it is like each of us has our own fingerprint. And again, I've done 4 different genetic testing because like we're continuing to learn. And I would say, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Come back to it in the future for further reference and fine tuning and guidance. There are certain things that are solid, like the genetic pathways for detoxification. We've been looking at those. I mean, I've been looking at them since early 2000. So there's a lot of science and correlations behind this. But with that said, we are each uniquely us. Caroline, you've got your hand raised, and then Christina.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Yes, hi. Very happy to be with you. It's what I would like to share is that It's only a few months ago when I started a hormone balance class in my naturopathic program here in Quebec that I discovered how much it's important for a naturopath to take hormone that much into account, because if we don't do it, we will work like many doctors who will just give vitamins because you have a headache, because you took weight, because you have pain in your knee. So if we do it, we just copy what they do instead of going really more deeper and figure out what is going on in the body and make the proper link in the pathway. So I really appreciate, because my one of my teacher, her name is Veronique Bourbeau. She was really in love with your work. She make us know who you are, what you do, and what you offer, your cream, Jalva, and balance. And so it was I opened the door, and now I'm bringing people in conferences to know you and to know about what you do. And I'm very happy to make, I discovered what is really my mission in the naturopath field, because of your work. And thank you very much.
Wow,
Yeah.
thank you, Caroline. I appreciate that.
here.
And it's
So
good to
sorry.
know there are more practitioners out there like you that are doing this work and that it resonates truth with. And, yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
and with men that we receive at the clinic, I can see that when they are low in DHEA, I can see really that in functional medicine there's link with their a loss of their proper hearing, their memory. We can see really links for these men, because it's not just that they lose their libido, it's because they are becoming to hear really badly, and the step after it will be dementia for many of them. So I think it's very
Absolutely.
important, the work that we do to open up the eye of people.
Yeah, yeah, I
Thank you.
agree. And it's interesting because I was I was getting my facial, and my facialist was lovely, but her father's been having these issues, mental issues, dementia issues, and she's been to every major neurologist, et cetera, here in Dallas. And I said, well, did anyone put him on progesterone and pregnenolone? Did anyone start him on DHEA? Like progesterone and pregnenolone, like, just start with balance cream. It is game changer for anxiety, depression, neurologic issues in men. I've used it in men for many, many years. And progesterone's been well studied in brain health, so in traumatic brain injury context. But there's so much more to it. The issue that it lags in research, because progesterone is bioidentical and it's not patentable substance. We had Prometrium, which patent expired, which is oral micronized progesterone, which patented the delivery mechanism in that peanut oil capsule. But that's how we got oral micronized progesterone, and now it's generic, so you don't even hear about Prometrium anymore. But I think that's been a limitation. But things like that, using men using balance, et cetera. All right, I see Margie's here. Margie, it's good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Sorry about the confusion.
I'm sorry I had it a different time on my calendar. I don't know how that happened. Anyway, I'm happy to be here with all of you and answer and do whatever I can do about bones and whatever you want.
Oh my good. I am so glad you're here. And they sent in some questions. So I'm going to quickly run through this slide set because we'll answer, I know you'll answer, we'll address the questions as we go through it, but I figure it would help to see what they are. So it's the Girlfriend Doctor Club Bone Health Special Edition today with Margie Bissinger, who is just amazing. She has dug into bone health and helping, thousands of women in her communities with osteoporosis, with knowledge of empowering, getting stronger. And also, she is really the happiness expert. She is a happiness expert. I always tell her she's got to change her podcast to like Happy with Margie or something. All right. So we got a lot of questions that came in about, okay, how do we track bone health between, I'm just going to run through these real quick because I know we'll go over them. So about tracking bone health in between DEXA scans, since insurance won't pay for frequent screening. And also maybe we can talk about, make these notes too, we can talk about economical ways to get bone density scans. Your thoughts on the Osteoboost, and there's also Osteostrong clinics.
Okay.
Rosemary asks, Kevin Ellis, health coach program for bone health. What's your opinion on that? And what's your opinion of vibration plates for stimulating bone growth? And can you use these if you've had a total hip replacement? Coach Kevin also recommends blood work every 3 to 6 months to track P1N1 CTXC, terminal telepeptides. What do you think? How does a hip replacement affect your bone density testing? And how do you compare pre-THR total hip replacement to post-THR? That's a really good question. We may talk about the Ecolite, Margie, if you want to.
Okay, sure.
Rosemary said, what about calcium supplementation? And what type of, what does she recommend if you do not want to take prescription medicine? We can talk about different prescriptions. Carrie wrote in, I had a full body composition DEXA scan done. I don't understand the difference. Can you address the difference in how often you might see numbers from the full body composition scan that aren't aligned with a more pure bone density scan? Carrie, if you're on it, I might ask for clarification of this. So we'll get to that too. I think I know what you're asking. Barbara said, I recently in the last month or so started using bioidentical hormones, but Dutch test showed I have very little of any hormones in my body. My practitioner put me on low dose estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. Vaginally, is it normal for my breast? This must be for me. My breast to
that's
be
for you,
tender. And will this go away as my, yes. Yeah. I would just go to every other day if you're getting tender breast. Just too much too soon, and reduce the dose by half. Ask your provider, but maybe reduce the dose by half. Add in a DIM supplement, DIM, or calcium D-glucarate in the meantime to help clear that estrogen. Make sure you're having daily, regular bowel movements 1 to 2 times a day. So, okay, those were great questions that came in.
Okay,
So,
these are amazing questions. Yep.
yeah. But
So,
I'd love for you to give us, okay, your background, and we can dig in
yeah,
to
I can answer all those questions. Okay, great. So my background is I'm a physical therapist and integrative health coach, and I also teach happiness. And I've been working with people with osteoporosis for over 30 years. And I started as a physical therapist. A group of doctors were started sending me their patients years ago. And I was working, my background is orthopedic physical therapy. And whoops, my microphone just went out. And and they started sending people with osteoporosis, and I was so upset because the doctor said exercise, but they didn't know what they were doing. They weren't giving any guidance, and they were actually doing exercises that increased their risk of fractures. So I said, you know what? I had to get involved here because it was too upsetting. Well-intentioned people were hurting themselves just because they didn't have the right guidance. So as a physical therapist, and I had been trained in women's health, so I had the background. So I started getting involved nationally, locally. I wrote one of the first books on exercise and osteoporosis. And then, long story short, my son got diabetes, and I saw how food and nutrition was so critical, and that was one of the missing pieces in osteoporosis. So I became a health coach, really studied that, added that, and now for many years I've been working. I developed this community, online community. I have a podcast and been interviewing people like you, Dr. Anna, experts all over. I've had 4 summits on osteoporosis, and the good news is there's another way. There's so much that can be done when we take this integrative approach. And that's what I love. And when people learn the tools and they see how the bones are not in isolation, it's all part of the whole body. And when we deal with it from that aspect, when we look at stress, happiness, exercise, hormones, root causes, people get better and they stay better. And not only do their bones get better, but the rest of their body as well. So anyway, so that's why I love what I do. I love what you do, and I'm really excited to be here to answer people's questions, because the good news is, people look at and diagnosis of osteoporosis and they say, you know what, it was a blessing in disguise, because everything I did for my bones, so many other things got better. So that's
when
sort
you
of
do it the right way through nutrition and lifestyle changes versus
it's
medication.
missing. The problem is conventional medicine, and I'm not anti-medication. There's definitely in this situation, especially with the newer medications, a place in the integrative approach for medications. However, right now, vitamin D, calcium, medication, the conventional approach is missing so much. And when they maybe just say exercise. So anyway, so I'm here
No,
helping.
that's perfect. So let's talk about your foundation. So the foundation, when you're like, okay, you're at risk or you've been diagnosed, we've got to do these foundations first. What's your approach?
Well, and I'll answer one of the questions. People ask me about the CTX and the P1MP. When you get a diagnosis, it's based on the bone density test, the DEXA, and they look at your bone density and they compare it to a 30-year-old, and they look at how many standard deviations are away. Well, the problem is, and yes, it's one of, it's an important test because we need to know, but it doesn't tell us anything. It just tells us the density. It doesn't tell us the quality of the bone. And bone strength is a combination of density plus quality. There are tests that can tell quality, but we don't know that on the bone density. And so the CTX, what that is, there's cells. There's cells that break down your bones, and they're called osteoclasts. They break down the bones, and there are cells that build up bones, the osteoboost. They build bone. And you need a balance. It's sort of like you need to, when you're constructing a road, you get rid of the old road and you put, new pavement down, new road. So that's what happens with your bones. We get sort of rid of the older bone and we replace new bone. So the osteoclast get rid of, and then we replace new bone with the osteoblast. And that should be happening. That's called bone turnover, and that's healthy. We don't have the same bone. Every 7 to 10 years, we get a new skeleton. Anyway, these osteoclasts, you can measure them. So that's what the CTX is that people asked about. And I love that test, and I think everybody should get that because that's telling us, are you actively losing bone? Is something going on right now that's breaking your bone down? Or maybe as a child, you had anorexia, you didn't exercise, or you had certain issues that you just didn't build enough bone. So we don't know when we get that DEXA. So that's why I love the CTX, because if there is inflammation, will cause bone loss. If there is inflammation going on and we deal with the inflammation, so the CTX will show bone breakdown. But then as we deal with these root causes, you can check in 6 months and see what's going on with. So the CTX measures the osteoclast, and the P1MP, I'm not going to go into the whole name because it's C-terminal and telepeptide or type 1 collagen. But if you look up CTX, that's fine. And then the P1MP tells you about the bone building cells, so you can see a balance. So it really gives you an inside look at what's going on. And I think that for everybody who has bone loss, it just gives you tremendous information. So I'm a huge believer in that. Those are called bone turnover markers. Sometimes if you go to your, yeah.
I was going to say, and compared to the NTX, because I was trained on the NTX and now have learned about the CTX and P1NP, so I'm going to start implementing that. But versus the N-telopeptide.
Yeah, the NTX it's still a good test, and it still will tell about the bone breakdown. But what more of the doctors are using it for, when they ever do studies and they're really looking at it, they found that the CTX is the best test for, and that's what I found with the people, the integrative doctors that I've been working with, that the CTX is the one that's preferred. Now, the NTX is still better than nothing. It will still give you information, but the CTX seems to be. But here's the caveat about that. It has to be done. Like sometimes the conventional doctors may say, oh, it's not accurate. It must be done first thing in the morning because it's time sensitive. Fasting, and also no biotin, no collagen for I think it's 48 hours before, and not even heavy exercise before. So, there's certain things that are really important. But anyway, so yes to those 2 tests, and I think those are really so important. The foundation, though, we need good nutrition. We absolutely, if there's any problem with your digestive system in the gut, that's going to affect your bones. We need to deal with that because you may not be absorbing your nutrients. There could be inflammation. There's so many different things that are going to affect your bones, and you can't ignore the gut. That's huge. In terms of supplements and just what we need calcium. And I think someone asked that question, what type of calcium, right? We need calcium, but what I see a lot, Dr. Anna, is that people are told from their doctor they need calcium, and more is not better. So I see people, I don't know if you see this too. I see people who are on, they're told to take 1,200 milligrams of calcium. They're already getting calcium in their diet. So I see people on too much calcium and not the other necessary ingredients. And really, research has shown 800 to 1,000 is plenty total. So that's food plus supplements. So I think calcium is important, but oftentimes I see people are getting some in their diet and they're getting extra supplements. The one supplement that I'm very against is calcium carbonate because it reduces stomach acid. It's the least absorbed and it's the cheapest. So it's a lot of times, that's one that people tend to gravitate to.
Well, I want to add on that too, like calcium supplementation in already inflamed or a high oxidative stress individual is going to create calcification. I mean, it's going to contribute to further calcifications. So the timing of implementation of calcium or additional calcium supplementation has to really be well thought out. What about the supplements like strontium and, for instance, what about strontium? Strontium, boron.
Okay, boron's great. There's research showing that boron helps with bone density. Boron's amazing. K2, I'll go into strontium in a minute, but K2 is absolutely essential because K2 makes sure that the calcium gets into the bones, out of the soft tissue. Two types. There's MK7, MK4. MK7, there's more research on the heart, but they're both excellent. And however, but MK4, there's a lot more research on fractures and really prevention of fractures. So I recommend actually people get both types, but that's really important. Vitamin D is critical. And let's see what, so we have vitamin D, vitamin K2, magnesium is essential cofactor for the calcium. So now you asked about strontium. So here's the situation with strontium. Strontium is a denser, it's denser, than calcium. So what happens is when people take strontium, their bone density will actually increase, but it's not saying that the bones are any stronger. So it actually disrupts the accuracy of the bone density test. So I'm not a huge fan of strontium in terms,
Okay,
yeah. And yes,
that's good to know.
yeah, so I tell people actually, because I know like there's a lot of people who take Algacal, and then they say, oh, your bone density will increase if you take Algacal Plus because that has strontium. And so sometimes it's actually a sad situation when people are so excited, oh, my bone density's better, but it's because they took strontium and that will make it appear better on the DEXA. So, yeah.
So what are you using to determine if it's actually better? Is that the Ecolite?
No, I think you can still use a DEXA, but I'm just saying if you've taken strontium, then the accuracy is questionable. So no, I think the DEXA is still good. The story on the echo, what I also like though, what I love is the TBS, trabecular bone score. And what that is, that's a software and it's becoming more popular that they use on some of the DEXA machines. And it really can tell the quality of bone in the spine. It's incredibly helpful. Now, the Echolite has potential. It certainly does. It gives a fragility score.
So let me tell you what the Ecolite is. The Ecolite's more of an ultrasound looking at the bone. So it's an ultrasound technology looking at bone. It's looking for specifically for the qualities of bone, healthy bone structure, bone strength, bone density from this, right? From the ultrasound
The difference,
perspective.
what they propose to do is they also give you they give you a T-score, but it's not the same T-score. So it's hard to say the norms on that. It's different. And what I've seen is a very different scores from the DEXA. So however, they give you a fragility score, which is more like the TBS, the quality of the bone. So that's the positive end. Speaking, I'm one of those people, like, unless I'm absolutely positive, I don't recommend something. So I've asked so many experts about it. And a lot of the people are like, I wouldn't do it by itself, but I've had it done myself. My scores were very different than my DEXA. So I think in addition to, it's certainly not a problem. And for people that have issues with like if you have scoliosis, or if you have rods in your spine, or you have spinal stenosis or
Or
arthritis.
the hip replacement.
Yeah, yeah. So in those situations, it certainly can be helpful. I just don't think, from talking to enough experts, that the data is like, yes, this is absolutely accurate. So, you know, I still have mixed opinions on it. I'm hoping it will be a fantastic thing. And it
Yeah.
certainly is in addition to a DEXA, but I wouldn't tell anyone to do it in lieu of a DEXA, because the DEXA is still the gold.
Standard.
Yeah. Okay, so should I keep going on the questions, or you want to ask me the questions? I wrote down a bunch.
Oh, well, definitely the, more on the foundations, because,
Yeah.
you're more
Okay,
on the
so
foundation.
foundation,
Let's keep going with that.
exercise. We go into exercise. Do you want me to go into that piece? Okay.
Yeah.
To me, this, and as a physical therapist, but this is what I've seen. This is absolutely key. There was a study done a while ago called the Lift More study in Australia. And what they showed was that women doing strength training, but serious strength training, it's called 85% of one repetition max. So hard, doing overhead presses, doing deadlifts, doing, weighted squats, doing impact training. They gained bone in both the hip and the spine, and they even changed the geometry of the hip, significant reduction in fractures. So this was so exciting, because for such a long time, people were afraid, oh my gosh, I have osteoporosis, I shouldn't do that much. But it was just the opposite. This was done with physical therapists and exercise physiologists. So it wasn't done with people by themselves. People were being supervised. But anyway, so that study was called the Lift More, and it turned into a program called the Onero program. That's all over Australia, and now it's in the United States as well. But anyway, it really changed things. We've always known resistance training increased bone density, but now we really see that at any age you can increase bone density. People sometimes thought, well, maybe I can maintain it, but you can actually increase it. And so for me personally, this has been so exciting, because I had Belinda Beck, who was the researcher for that study, on my summit. And I said, anyone in the United States doing it? This is years ago. And she was one person. Where did she live? She lived in Somerset, New Jersey, 25 minutes from where I live. So I've been doing the program myself for a year. Everyone has gained, myself too. I gained bone density just from doing this. I changed nothing else. But and my TBS, the quality of the bone, even increased. So it's really not just me, but the point is exercise can really improve bone density. And the main thing is, it's not that. We don't want to fall. We don't want fractures. So exercise, working on your balance, working in Tai Chi, working on all of this will prevent you from falling. And at the end of the day, that's what's so critical. So between balance, posture, so exercise is huge. And the other thing that I know, Dr. Anna, you're such a big believer in is stress and happiness. And, cortisol, this is what you preach, the stress hormone, has a major effect on the bones. It increases the osteoclast, the cells that break down the bone, and it reduces the activity of the osteoblast. So so many times people say to me, they're so worried. Are they eating the exact right diet? Are they doing the exact exercises? But they don't realize all this stress plays a huge role. So to me, that's always been part of the equation for the foundations. We need to reduce the stress and also happiness. And they've done research studies showing that, there's a correlation between bone health, between bone density and cortisol. And so, and reducing stress. So that's really important. And even happiness. They showed that happier people have increased bone density. So it all plays together. And then root causes. We need to find out, what are the root causes. It's not just, oh, you have osteoporosis, let's put you on medication. What is causing this? We need to deal with that, because if we don't figure it out, then it's just like putting a Band-Aid on something. So anyway, so that's the foundations. The same foundations as, and the hormones are so important as well, because, we can really prevent bone loss and make a big difference when we optimize our hormones, as you're the expert on that one.
Well, it's so important, because it's foundations that comes to like all the things, right? To increase happiness, increase oxytocin. We want movement. We have to move well, clean air, clean water, right?
Mhm.
good night's sleep, all of the and good healthy nutrition, all of these and relationships, all of these things come together as the like this is part of the building blocks of foundation, because we can be like, okay, well, I'm taking this medication, but do I feel better? Am I happier? Is longevity improved? And all of these aspects. And yeah, absolutely, hormones come a long way. Estrogen decreases bone loss and helps maintain bone, but progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, all help build bone. So like we look at that as part of a comprehensive. Now let's go into some more on this movement, because at any age, and I love Sarah Scheinbaum, because she's in her 70s now, and she's like, I see her with her barbells, and she started really weight training. She was a dancer all her life, and she started weight training to improve her bones, and just a few years ago. So just a few years ago, and hormones to help her with her bones, and she's made incredible strides. So there's the Osteostrong. There are Osteostrong centers that are popping up.
Okay, let's go there. There's a great, I'll have to give you the link. The bone, I'm trying to think of the name of it. The Bones Lab from Waterloo University. Her name's Laura Giangregorio. They look at all the research on bone health from all over, and they looked at Osteostrong. And what they found was the research it was based on is not accurate, number one. Number two, what they found was when they looked at that, there was a study done with Osteostrong and the Liftmore study that I had told you about in Australia. The Liftmore gained bone, not with Osteostrong. Number two, when they looked head to head. Number three, there were people that had fractures from Osteostrong. So I don't like to be negative about things, but on my summit, this is what really upset me. On my summit, I've had 4 summits on osteoporosis, Dr. Anna.
And we'll make sure to put a link in the show, in the notes, to the summit too.
And so
Can they get the recordings and all
I
of
can
that?
still get that.
Okay,
Yes.
put that in there.
I have to, I think it's on my website, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, so what happened is under each speaker, there was room for people to comment or ask questions. And people wrote, I had fractures from Osteostrong. I had fractures from Osteostrong, fractures from Osteostrong. So it's not something I recommend at all. I think the people, it's not trained physical therapists or it's not the people, they just have people at these centers. They are not trained. They don't know about movement. And maybe you can gain bone density from it. It's possible. I mean, what it is, it's osteogenic load. They put high loading on. But there's too many injuries. There's too many injuries. People had fractures. So when they did, and I'll get you, Dr. Anna, the link exactly. It's from the Bones Lab. And I guess if you put Laura Giangregorio, Osteostrong Bones Lab, you can get it, but I'll get it for you. But anyway, they had thumbs down when they looked at it from a research perspective. They said absolutely not. And I've just heard too many people had fractures and too many people got injured, and it's expensive. And
Okay, so
yeah.
it's very expensive. And okay, can you explain what it is, the Osteostrong centers, that's like this
Yeah,
weight
what it is,
loading
it's they
one
put
time a week or
a
whatever?
tremendous amount of weight. They load the skeleton, and the bones respond to the forces like that. But it's a short loading, and it's osteogenic loading, which could conceivably increase bone, and it's doing certain exercises with these machines. But it's like once a week, and then they have you go on the power plate, which is a high, and I'll talk about vibration. They have you go on that in between as well. So I
Okay,
hate to say negative things about things, but the research has not proven that, when they compared it to just exercise, the strength training really showed improvements where this didn't, and people had injuries.
well, and I think that's also for the right people, right? Because if you have the fragile bone, you're not going to start with Osteostrong.
Right.
So I think that's important to understand. If like, okay, well, who is it then good for? Is it good for the athlete preventing? Is it already good if you've got good muscle tone? Is it already good if you have decent bones, versus if
I
you've got
don't think
osteopenia or osteoporosis, that's who we're promoting it for. Maybe it's not the right.
the original research that they used wasn't possible to have such high improvement in bone. It wasn't even like physically possible. So my opinion, and this is my opinion, and just seeing too many people injured in my summit, I mean, I probably 30 people wrote in over the years. I've been injured from Osteostrong. I've been injured, and there were I had wanted to go to the one near me to see it, and for some reason they never called me back. This and that, but other people I know, exercise instructors, said the instructors really weren't trained. They really didn't have the background. So it's not monitored like, for example, the ONERA, which only is the physical therapist or or exercise physiologist. So I'm not a
What is that,
fan.
Onera?
Yes, so I love, love, love. I can't say enough, and I've been doing it myself for over a year now, and I've gotten really strong, and I was strong to begin with, but ONERO, and they have locations now in different parts of the world, and there are a fair amount now in the United States. And so that program is based on the research from Australia. That's outstanding. So if there's one near you, and they'll evaluate you. So what they did, they took the research and they said, well, can this work in a clinic? Like, yes, it worked in a research study, but what about an actual clinic? And they got the same results. And the thing is, if someone has a shoulder injury or something else, they modify it because you're working with physical therapists and you're working with people who know how to do this. So I think the Onero is a wonderful program. I also
And
think, yeah.
explain what it is
Oh,
too.
okay. So what the Onero is, you'd be evaluated, but basically they found certain exercises in increased bone density. And it really is what people did years ago. It's people who were not sort of in people who were pushing, people who were lifting, people who were carrying babies all over the place. What we did in more primitive days, these people didn't get osteoporosis. So
We
what
say functional exercises.
Exactly. So what the Onero consists of, it's an overhead press, again, in really good posture, certain breathing, certain stabilization. It's weighted squats where you have a bar on your shoulder. You work towards this. You don't start this. It may take you weeks to get the coordination and to figure out, how you stabilize before you'd even do this. And then there's deadlifts, but learning proper mechanics to do this. Then there's like where we do impact. So you would do a little jumping, but again, we don't start with that. Let's see. So it's 5 exercises. Did I say 5? The overhead press, weighted squats, deadlift, the jumping. What am I missing? Deadlift, overhead press, weighted squats. Um, Maybe there's just 4. Wait. Anyway,
The pull-ups or push-ups or any of
we
those, or
do those additionally, but that wasn't part of what they found. The incredible
lunges? I don't know. What would be the
press,
fifth
weight
one?
squats. I guess it's just the 4, the main exercises. And anyway, we do a lot of other things too in the class, in terms of balance and in terms of different things. But those were the exercises that they showed. And so but it's 5 sets of 5 repetitions. So it's really increasing the weight to tolerance. But I highly recommend, this is my recommendation. My first recommendation, this is covered by insurance. So if you can work with a physical therapist, that's always the best because they could look at your posture, look at your body. And, that's the number one thing, I think, to work with a physical therapist if you can, just to learn what's best for you, where to start, if you have limitations, how to modify. But there's something from Canada called Bone Fit, and you can find instructors online. If you go, I had made a little thing, tinyurl.com/PT BoneFit, or you just put in BoneFit practitioners into Google. And then you can see if there's someone near you because they've been trained. They're physical therapists who've been trained in osteoporosis and have that understanding. So that's
And
another.
precaution and gentleness is funny because we're talking about fitness. And Lavinia Erico, do you know her? She was one of the founders with her brothers of Equinox, a very famous
Oh, yeah,
chain of
yeah.
gyms. So Lavinia Erico was visiting, she stayed over last night, and we were anyway, we were doing a workout, of course, with her. We're like at night, I put on my biocharger for lymphatics, and we're like, okay. And another friend of hers were over, and she's running us through this lymphatic stuff. I mean, like just jumping, twisting, all this good movement for lymphatics, rolling our shoulders, rolling our hips, and all this stuff. And like we would change positions, and there she was adjusting me, like tilting my knee out, turning my foot the other way, pushing my shoulders back. I mean, you really need something someone who has an eye for that in training, because I thought I was doing it right, and and then you're doing it wrong and you throw yourself off balance. But just one little adjustment, I had better balance, and that's good. So we want to touch on the power plate.
Okay,
What do you
yes,
think
perfect.
or vibration plates?
Yes.
There are many different ones.
Okay, so here's my feeling on this. I'm a huge, huge believer in one type of vibration plate. The one I like is the low intensity vibration. And the reason is that they've done research on this, and they found that there's a certain a certain
Frequency.
vibration, right? Like it's 30 hertz, and I think it's four. What's exactly? Well, they found that low intensity vibration stimulates the mesenchymal stem cells in the bone marrow to turn into bone and not fat. So and there has been research on it. The research is mixed in terms of some of the studies with postmenopausal women, but they did show postmenopausal women were able to change those mesenchymal stem cells into bone instead of fat, which I think is huge. So the one I like because that's gentle. It's gentle. The power plate really shakes you, and there's a society that looks at environmental hazards, and they found that these high vibrations are not safe for even short periods of time. So if they're not safe in the workplace, how would they be safe to stand on? And people, there have been incidents. I mean, a lot of people will say they love the power plate and they've had great situation. I always believe in safety first. There have been some reports of detached retinas and different things. So the one I like is the Maradyne. It's very gentle, but it gives you the right stimulus that to stimulate, that you can still get the stimulus for the bone without putting anything at risk. And yes, you can use it for a total hip, total joints. They've done research with people, so the research is pretty good actually. I've been using it now, oh gosh, probably 7 years. And as a physical therapist, I've been using this one that I like. I've been using that with patients for many years. And it's hard to say because I do everything with the people that I was working with. It wasn't that that's the only thing they got, but there were certain people who really weren't able to do much. And they seem to be able to maintain their bone density. So to me, it's expensive. But if you're going to choose one, I love the Maradyne. I'll talk about the Osteoboost next. I love the Maradyne. I think that's
How do you spell that? Maridyne?
Marodyne. And
Okay.
there's a person,
Maradyne.
his name is Ian Cutts, who's really fantastic. And he would supply any research that you want. I interviewed Clint Rubin, who is one of the people who did the work with NASA in terms of, for the astronauts. So that's where the research came from. So I certainly think it's a wonderful adjunct. Again, it's not cheap. But I go on it every day. I've been doing this for years, and there's nothing negative to it, and it's just an extra stimulation in terms
Yeah, I'll
of
definitely have to look at that one. I've been using the power plate for years now, but there's a right way and a wrong way,
yeah.
right?
I
There's
think
like a way to shift so you're
yeah,
not shaking your brain and all of that stuff. Then again, depends on your level of fitness, bone
right.
health, bone
That's the
strength.
thing.
And
That's the
yeah. And
exact.
I just stay at the 1 to 3 range. I don't go above it. Um, but
Yeah,
that's good to
gotta
know.
be careful, right? And you bend your knees on the power plate, right? With this one, you don't have to because you're getting vibration through the body. Exactly.
Fascinating.
That's just
Okay, definitely look at that.
that's been my experience with that. So I'll answer the Osteoboost, and I don't like to be the negative one. I don't like to say negative things about things. So Osteoboost is something that goes on the hip, and it was exciting. It was like got Medicare reimbursement, and oh, how wonderful. And it sounds really great. You just wear this device on the hip and it helps bone density. But they used the research from Clint Rubin's research, from the NASA research for this. And the problem is sometimes you have to look at the research because it didn't really show improvement in bone density in the hip and the spine. It didn't really show that. It showed one vertebrae, I think it was L1, that maybe they didn't have as much bone loss. So it's just for osteopenia, but it's like taking research and trying to make it fit what you want, if that makes sense. So if you really analyze the research, it wasn't positive. One vertebrae showed less bone loss. So, none of us really understand why there's been so much hype about it and why it was approved. It's only approved for osteopenia. but it didn't really, it wasn't that the results were so great by any means. And then a lot of people say it's very uncomfortable because it's one part of your hip. So it's not getting forces through the whole spine like the vibration plates are. And so yeah, so I would say I'm, right now with the research that's there and that some people stopped it. When they did the research, people stopped it because they had back pain. So it's not something that I would recommend.
I
Exercise.
have never prescribed it,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, so that's my feeling on it. But it looks good. It's one of those things you really have to be in the know. If you look at a paper and you see the headlines, oh, wear this on your hip, it's covered by insurance, it will increase bone density, it really doesn't, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, and I think like when you're using that vibration plate, when you're using your Meradyne, how are you using it? What exercises are you doing on it? How often? Time of day,
Okay,
does
what
it
they
matter?
found, yeah, what they found now, the latest on on the one I use, I personally use it just once a day. I use it once a day for 10 minutes. And I do so much exercise. I'm a major exerciser. So I literally watch TV on it and I just stand on. I don't do things on it. You could use that time to meditate, but I do meditate. You could use that time for many things. You don't really, I mean, you could work on pelvic movement and posture. There's all sorts of things you could do, gentle exercises, unlike the power plate that you really can. I mean, the power plate will definitely improve your balance. There's no question. There's definitely positive things about it. It's just balancing that for some people with the possibility that it's too intense. Um, but now what they recommend, the research has even been better if you use it ideally twice a day for 5 to 10 minutes each time. I just find once a day is fine. That's what I've been doing it, but ideally, and to give time in between, it just gives time for the body, not like right after each other. You do it once. I think maybe like 5 hours or so, at least in between, or in the morning or in the evening, or just, that's what they found is ideal, at least 5 days a week if you can, to keep giving the stimulus to the bone. That's what they've, I mean, they've had good research on people who have had cancer or people who weren't able to do activities, but they were able to stimulate with this. So, and as I said, there was a postmenopausal research that they did do that was positive. So I'm always getting updated. Ian Cutts sends me all the new articles. So if people are interested, I can get that information for you to contact him. But that's sort of my feeling on that in terms of when to use it. For 10 minutes. You can do things on it. As I said, I just stand on it, but you certainly can do, mindfulness or breathing. You could use that time to do all sorts of other things on it.
That sounds good. And the vibration increases oxytocin, Margie. I mean, can
It's
increase
also good for
oxytocin.
right. There's so many other things. I mean, they found proprioception and they found, people with lymphedema. There's good research on lymphedema. It really helps lymphedema. So there's a lot of other things that it helps. So it is a good situation. It is good.
So what have you seen? Like, what have you seen with your bones? Like, where were you when you started? Like, have you maintained strong, healthy bones? Like,
Yeah, so my bones have stayed the same for a really long time. Yeah, they have not, and actually they've increased now since I've done the Onero. I mean, and that's what I'm seeing everybody in my program. And I'm 66 and the people in my program are my age. And so that's what I've been seeing is even maintaining is good because, with time we usually have a decrease in bone. I mean, that's, and especially
right,
people
that's expected, right? It's
who
expected. So
aren't on hormones
maintaining
and
is
things. Right. So even maintaining is good. But what I've been seeing is people at least maintain, and then but then people can actually increase. Now, there are people, I mean, I just have to say, if for some reason you're starting out and the main thing is we don't want to fracture because that's where it becomes so debilitating and people don't recover and their life is changed. So it's not just the bone density, because you can have your bone density can improve, but you can have poor balance and you can have poor muscle strength and you're not eating well and, all sorts of things that you fall and you'll fracture. Two people with the same bone density, one can fall and fracture because the quality is not good. But what I've been seeing is that I lost my train of thought here. Oh, okay. So with, oh, so no, but what I was going to just say for people, if you have really low bone density, let's say minus 3.5, or, if, and you see your CTX is very high, and really anything over 350 is telling you there's bone breakdown. And so if that's the case, for years, I had my first summit was on natural approaches to osteoporosis and bone health, and I didn't talk about medications because I didn't even want to go there. But the truth is that people say, I'm not taking medication, I'll never do that. And then they have a fracture. So medications now, they're medications that actually build bone. And for certain people, if it's so low, it can build your bone, and then you can, while you're doing all the natural things. So I found for many people, there are people that it is necessary so that you don't have a fracture while you're figuring out and doing everything. So I just didn't want people to be scared about it, because I think now there is a place in an integrative approach where you can, for those people who need it, who really have low bone density and they're at risk for fractures. But I think that what I've been seeing when people deal with the root causes, and, it's so interesting because even, sometimes the blood work people don't pick up, like hyperparathyroidism, their blood calcium levels. Certain times things are missed. And then, but once people deal with the root causes, exercise, reduce their stress, hormones can be a big place if they can do that. And, the whole approach works, that people don't fracture, they maintain an increase. And then all along in the process, they've done so many good things that they're just a much healthier person
Yeah.
moving forward. So that's what I've been seeing. I've been doing this now for over 30 years. So that's, I try to tell people, take that fear and turn it into empowerment. Learn what you can do, and then, when you become strong, being strong, I have to tell you, if everyone out there, it is like if you can lift your own suitcase and you can do your own things, there is just nothing better. It's so great. But, just even doing Tai Chi, doing balance, not being able to, not falling, it's incredible. So anyway, so I'm just a big believer in sometimes it's a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, no, I like looking at it. What incites us to action, and that empowerment piece, taking control, knowing that we can be better tomorrow. Okay, going to medications, because way back,
Mhm.
we had the option of the bisphosphonates, but then it caused mandibular degeneration, a hard brittle bone, looked good on DEXA scan, but it was going to shatter. What are some of the medications that are out now that are better for
Yeah.
osteoblastic production?
Exactly. It's really changed so much. So in the past, what's called the bisphosphonates. So there's Fosamax, Actonel, Prolia works a little different, but what those do, they stop bone loss. So they stop the osteoclast activity, but they don't really affect much. And there's reclast as well. Reclast is once a year. Um, what they have now is now they have three different medications that actually build bone. So they work on the osteoblast. There's Forteo, Tymlos, and Evenity. Evenity is the newest one that causes the greatest improvement in bone density. But you can only use that for a year. And there are, people with any kind of cardiac issues cannot do that. The key thing what they found is, though, if you to be most effective for a person that needs medication, you don't want to go on the bisphosphonates first because it makes the other medications less effective. So for someone that really has bone loss, you start with those anabolics if you need it. Builds bone, but you can't stop. You can't just like go off it because you'll actually lose more bone. So then you do have to, for a short time, go on something called reclass, is the one typically. It's an injection once a year, and it just stops the bone loss. So but these other bones actually can build bone, and it's certainly something to look into. It's not something you really need to work with the endocrinologist, work with your physician, figuring out what would be best if you need them. If you need them, it's not certainly not the first thing I go to, but someone who does have, it's changed. You're just like you said, the other ones didn't build bone. This actually builds bone, and and that's what's so great, that people who are at such high risk were able to build bone, But the key, Dr. Anna, is they have to do everything else. It's not, and I hear this all the time, oh, I'll just take the medicine. It's not that simple. You need a good diet. You need to be absorbing your nutrients. You need your hormones. You need your exercise. It's not a panacea ever. But for certain people who really lost a lot of bone and are at such high risk for fracture, it does help. And, it can be part of this integrative approach. And that's what I've seen. I work with Dr. Kim Millman. That's what we've seen, that there are people who, Dr. Keith McCormick, who's really brilliant on this, who, so we do see that there is a place and people really have been helped by them as well. And, so a lot of times people are like, I'm not, and there have been people in my community who are like, I'm no matter what going on, and came back and they said, you know what, I made a mistake. This is early on. They said, you know what, I ended up having a fracture. And, so we just don't want that. But for everybody, balance, it's so important. Posture is so important. All these basic things that you teach, all the foundational things, the sleep, all of this makes such a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And also talking about, like, again, the hormones here, the anabolic hormones, like the testosterone, DHEA, progesterone, pregnenolone, we know builds bone. So that becomes, that is so important. Again, we look at this in stages, and an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So I have clients now in their 40s who have osteoporosis.
We do have a lot of questions, Margie, in the chat. If you want to look over there,
Can we
there's
answer them? Well, okay, sure.
yeah.
You want to read them to me, or do you want me to get in the chat?
Yeah, I can. Let's see. Do you know of any affordable options for vibration plates? We got a couple people.
Yeah, that's a
saying
really good
yes.
question. Unfortunately, they're like $3,000. I do not know
Yeah.
them ones that are really, but again, exercise. If you can't, it's not essential, the vibration. Yeah. I wish they were cheaper. Sometimes you can get it on your insurance. Sometimes there are different plans that will use it as part of a budget, or certain things people have been able to, but typically not covered by like Medicare or anything. Okay.
What about a weighted vest? How do you
Oh,
feel
good
about this?
question. Good question. I'm like the bearer of bad news, I think. A lot of my colleagues will say, really, I just have to be
Great, I
totally
love my weighted vest.
Yeah, no. I'm not saying anything negative about weighted vests. A lot of people love them. A lot of my colleagues, who I think are amazing, love the weighted vest. Here's the deal on the weighted vest. They haven't, where I see that they can be really useful is if you're doing certain exercises and you want extra force on them while you're doing the exercises, you can wear the weighted vest. They haven't found that walking around in them, doing your daily activities in the weighted vest, walking just really increases bone density. The research hasn't shown that. So in that sense, what I saw as a physical therapist too often is that someone's wearing the weighted vest and they're getting shoulder pain, or it's causing problems on their knees. And so I think if you're using it in conjunction with an exercise, like you're doing squats with the weighted vest, or you're doing things for short periods of time, that's fine. But I don't see that, I haven't found people seem to, to walk in them. I think when you're walking, you should be nice and relaxed and feel good. And so and I've seen that it hurts people's knees, it hurts people's backs. So, and a lot of my colleagues will say that too, that they found for certain people. So I think if you're using it as part of your exercise program, I think it's fine. I had hurt my wrist. I actually fell off an e-bike and broke, imagine, I broke my wrist, but they said my bones were good because I broke a bone that, like they said, was like a young person's, a scaphoid. But the point was I couldn't do my normal exercises. So I wore a very heavy weighted vest and did my squats and did this and that. So I think in that sense, but a lot of people think they're going to really help themselves by walking around in the weighted vest. And to me, I think that it messes up your posture too much. And the research hasn't really shown that it significantly increases bone density. I'd rather use it during serious weight training.
Okay, good to know, good to hear. And that's it. You feel like it challenges you. I definitely like that. But
Yeah.
okay, what about collagen supplementation? I know this we've gone long,
Yeah.
Margie, and
No,
I
that's okay.
appreciate
I'm
your
good.
time.
I'm good. No, I feel badly that I got them late. No, I like collagen. I think collagen is great. I think collagen, and there's some collagen that has Fortibone that they've actually done research on. That there's Designs for Health, and a couple other brands have Fortibone in it where they've done research that's showing that helps bone density. So collagen I like. I also love like perfect aminos or amino acids, which are really great, a great way, because a lot of people just don't get enough protein. So a great way to get the amino acids, which are the building blocks of protein. So yeah, love all that stuff. I think it's all good.
And collagen peptides versus
Yeah,
straight collagen.
exactly. Yep.
Collagen peptides. Okay. I think we covered all the questions that we got in. Jami, did we miss any?
I'm looking through here now, and we did a pretty
Oh,
good
and also
job.
just talking, I promise I would mention, inexpensive bone density testing. So there's body spec. And Margie, what's your opinion on
I
body
don't
spec
even know
scan?
what body spec is.
Body spec is a DEXA scan that also does body composition. And so like it's $59. It's cash pay. You can get it, without a prescription. You do it yourself and you can follow it every 4 months. You can continue to repeat
Bone
those
density too, or is it just measuring
it's
your
measuring your bone density too, but then again, you have to make sure
Oh.
because like some of them are like if you've ever done a portable, like they have vans that go around, but they has to be calibrated. They have centers, they have to be calibrated. So again, the body spec versus an in-hospital standalone DEXA scan unit. It is a DEXA scan, but they're also looking at the body composition related to that. So I think it's a good gestalt. It's a good way if like your insurance isn't covering a bone density scan. Also for everyone, you can call your your radiology centers around you that do bone density scan and say, what is your cash pay price? And often I have clients doing this because we can't, their insurance won't cover a bone density scan, but they'll call and they'll get a bone density scan at the hospital for $100. If it was to be filed through their insurance, it's $550, So you can also call for that. But I found body spec to be a good option at $59 a scan to be able to measure over time. And there's places all over the USA that is doing that. And then Ecolite is another perspective, the bone density, the using the ultrasound, looking at your hip. So that may be, that's another
I think
way
that's
to look.
Yeah, I think that's really up and coming. And I just, before I ever say yes, I just need more verification. But it's certainly,
Totally.
but I just have a couple things. Now, someone asked a very good question about, the DEXA, if you have a total hip, well, you're not going to get, it's not going to give you the information. However, that is why you want both hips done. So always ask your doctor, right? Both hips, the spine. I also like to ask for the risk because I want as many areas as possible. But the thing with the hips is that what happens if you need a total hip? And you only had one hip done? What happens if somehow you need that other? So it's always good to get both hips, even though sometimes places will only do one. And I always like to ask for the risk too. The more areas we get, the more information we get, and it's really helpful. You can't use the risk to totally determine, but it just gives you more information if, I also think, but get both hips because you never know. I mean, hopefully, you may not need a total hip, but if in the future, then you lose, if, let's say you do get it, so then and that was your hip that you had done, you don't have any frame of reference.
Yeah,
Right.
you have a couple questions that just came in. So first one, I'm going to rapid fire these for you. What age should you get your first bone scan?
Oh, it's very interesting. I mean, I think before menopause. What do you think, Dr. Anna?
35.
Yeah, if you can.
I think 35, but earlier, if you've had asthma, been on steroids or any of these, had radiation therapies.
Yeah, if there's any risk factors. I mean, it's so interesting because the American College of OBGYN, gynecology, they would say it's 65.
That's the going rate.
But now they say if you have risk factors, well, everyone who's gone through menopause, that's a risk factor. Yeah, but I'd say the earlier the better. So you have a baseline, you have a baseline. And I know what I love about you, Dr. Anna, is that women before, who are going through menopause, before menopause, perimenopause, whatever, you get their hormones all set so they can prevent this. This is preventable. But we just, unfortunately, there was a whole generation that didn't see it that way.
Okay, how intense do we have to jump? Is that like
Okay,
jump rope or without a rope?
I did my
What are we
jump
doing?
rope this morning for 5 minutes.
The research has shown that doing jumps, I think I'm trying to think the research was like 10 jumps increase bone density. So it depends. I don't want anyone hurting themselves. You don't just for someone that's never done it. You start like with a gentle heel drop, just up on your toes and down on your heels, like a very gentle heel drop you start with. And then, you can just gradually increase to a soft surface. But that's interesting. They did research and they had someone I wouldn't recommend this. They had them hop on one leg only, and they saw that the bone density on the hopping leg increased, but not on the other leg. So yeah, I think it was 10 jumps. I can look that up. But yeah, jump rope is good. Anything where you get in the Onera, we do 5 sets of 5, where we like lift up and jump down. But again, good form, posture is key. You must perform these exercises in good posture, good alignment, stabilizing. So what I always tell people is on the exhale, you tighten your pelvic floor, belly button in and up. As you exhale, you're now stabilizing everything. So you're not going to hurt yourself. That's when you do your force. That's when you do your exertion. And that's the key. And maintaining a neutral spine. You'll see people rounded. That's not how, we want our spine. There's an inward curve in our spine. We want to maintain that so that when we're doing our exercises. And the last thing for people that do have osteoporosis, I just want to mention this. The fractures occur in the front. This is the front and this is the back. Fractures occur in the front of the spine. And this is showing like a little, now ideally our spine's nice and square shaped, but this shows what happens with fractures. It becomes wedge shaped. So now if you were to bend forward, all the force is fulcruming on the weakest area. So they found that forward bending increases the fracture. So anyone with osteoporosis, we don't want to do the rounding exercises. We want to do things, but with a neutral spine. So like yoga,
So
I love
again,
yoga.
getting the physical therapy, a physical therapist or good training who has had experience working with people with osteoporosis, osteopenia, it makes all the difference. I had a patient in recently and she is 52 years old, and she had severe osteoporosis diagnosed 3 years ago and was told you can't exercise. And I was like, okay, hold on a second. Wait, let's get you with a really good physical therapist and let's start. And I can prescribe that and send her to, there's a resistance training we can start with. But her bones continue to get worse despite all the medication she's been put on. But you're at a high risk for fracture. And she was like, that was devastating her. I mean, her world got so small as a result. I know we got to go. There was question Amy putting in about
Yes.
FSH. Have you found FSH and bone loss? I
Oh,
know
well,
I brought it up to you on your.
Anna brought this up when she came to my class recently. So the thing with FSH, no, I'm doing a major research on this now, thanks to you, because I think it's really important. And I think that's so interesting. So no, so now that you brought this to my attention, I am going to majorly.
We're gonna work on figure this out together and see how we do. Well, Margie, thank you so much for being on. Thank you so much for coming to our community, giving such practical tips and information and help and support. Tell our audience here today how to get a hold of you and learn more and join your community, because you've got an amazing community as well.
Yeah, we have so much fun. So basically, just my website's the best thing, margiebissinger.com. And there is a free thing, a free exercise thing where I go through posture exercises and balance. So it's just on the margiebissinger.com. You can sign up and get all these videos that I've done to get you started. And then, yeah, my community is called the Happy Bones Club, and happiness is part of it, and we have guest experts every month, and Dr. Anna was the guest expert this month, which was so much, right? It's a fun community.
It's a great community. Yeah.
And yeah, so if you're interested in learning more about your bones, we'd love to have you. And I have a podcast too called Happy Bones, Happy Life.
Oh, and and your summit and getting your summit
Oh
recorded.
yeah, yes,
So
I'm pretty sure if you go on under programs on my website, margiebissinger.com, or I can give you a link if you want for the
yeah,
summit.
definitely give us a link.
Okay.
We'll put it in the show notes. We'll share it in our follow-up
I'll get you a-
messaging too, so that we can, you know, share that with our community. And yes, it's not just for women, right? It's for men too.
No, everybody get right. No, no, no. Women in the United States, it's 1 out of 2 women over 50 will have a fracture due to osteoporosis. Worldwide, 1 out of 3, but men, it's 1 out of 4 in the United States and 1 out of 5 worldwide. So yeah, this is something we need to deal with.
Spread the word. We can make a difference at any age, after any diagnosis. Your diagnosis is not your destiny. So thank you everyone for being with us today. And definitely this is information you want to share and tell your friends about and implement in your life. Think today, okay, what's one thing at least, right? Like make a list of things that you've learned from this conversation, and what are things, what's one thing you can start doing today that's going to help you have stronger, healthier bones and happiness, right? Happy bones, happy life. What's one thing you can start implementing? Because it's always one next right step at a time. And so getting strong and living strong and happy, I think is a good way to live life. So for sure. And a lot of gratitude to Margie for sharing this information in such a digestible way. We really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. All right. Take care until next time.
Thank you.
Well, wasn't that a wonderful, joyful, and empowering conversation? I mean, she just makes you smile listening to her. Margie has such a gift for bringing science and practicality together in a way that makes you want to take action. Plus, her work with thousands of women in her communities has shown real life examples of what is possible. We are not alone. And remember that your bones, your posture, let me sit up straighter here, your posture, your health. These are things that not just happen with age, you have the power to support them every day with small intentional choices. So if today's episode resonated with you, be sure to connect with Margie at margiebissinger.com. We'll put all the links below, and check out her amazing resources on bone health, plus even more importantly, joyful living. And as always, thank you for joining me. Please share this episode with a friend who needs some encouragement today. Leave us a review that makes a huge difference in our rankings and the amount of people we can reach, and share this message with. Let's keep spreading the message of vitality. Until next time, stay joyful, stay strong, and remember you are never alone on this journey. I love being your girlfriend doctor. Till next time, God bless.
Thanks for watching another episode of the Girlfriend Doctor podcast. Check out all the links below for more.